I've been sitting in the Penn State College of Agricultural Sciences archive in University Park since Tuesday morning, going through a USDA soil bulletin, a Penn State extension file from 1943, and a printed index of American Society of Heating and Ventilating Engineers standards from 1932. I need to tell you what I found, what those three documents together prove, and what the air conditioning industry has actively hidden since 1932, is this single buried number. At 6 feet underground, the soil in central Pennsylvania holds a year-round temperature of 54 to 56 degrees Fahrenheit. A pipe buried at that depth and pulled by a 40-watt fan on a 95-degree afternoon in July delivers air to a home at 51 degrees. Hold that figure in your head. 51 degrees. The hottest afternoon of the year. From a hole in the dirt and a $40 fan. I want that number sitting with you for the next several sentences, because I am about to explain how the most powerful trade association in American housing made sure you never once heard it. I've spent 11 hours across 2 days inside that microfilm lab. I have read the 1977 USDA bulletin titled Utilization and Dissipation of Waste Heat by Soil Warming. I have cross-referenced the 1943 Penn State Agricultural Extension Bulletin, File C-211, titled Use of Underground Air Tunnels for Heating and Cooling Agricultural Buildings. I have read the 1932 ASHVE Standard M-14-32, with its one appended paragraph that wiped an entire technology from every state building code. I've also spent 3 Augusts in Holmes County, Ohio. The evidence trail is complete, and here is why nobody was supposed to find it. If you live in a one-bedroom apartment in Phoenix, or own a 1920s Craftsman in Detroit, or rent a room in Tampa you cannot legally modify, stay with me. Because what I'm about to hand you works for somewhere between $69 and $112 in parts. And yes, this works even if your house was built 80 years ago, even if you live in a city, even if you have never touched a shovel in your life. Stay with me. Because what I found in Holmes County, Ohio, uses the exact same physics the Persians used to keep silk merchants alive in the year 1300, when outdoor air was 115 degrees and indoor air stayed at 62. The Earth was selling air conditioning then. The Earth is still selling it today. The industry just stopped letting you buy it. Now, here is what the evidence actually shows. The ground below your frost line maintains a temperature equal to the long-term average annual air temperature of your region. In Pennsylvania, that's 54 to 56 degrees. In Georgia, it's 63. In Arizona, it's 72. Always. The physics never changes. 6 feet down, the sun cannot reach. The wind cannot reach. The season cannot reach. A tube buried at that depth becomes a free heat exchanger that runs day and night without a compressor. Cited study. Oak Ridge National Laboratory in a 2016 evaluation published as ORNL/CP-69041 on variable refrigerant flow and ground-coupled systems documented that buried earth cooling tubes deliver between 26 and 40 units of cooling for every 1 unit of electrical input. The conventional split-system air conditioner in your attic delivers between 2.8 and 3.4 units of cooling for the same 1 unit of electrical input. The Oak Ridge researchers called this ratio the coefficient of performance. The earth tube scored 26 to 40. Your window unit scored 2.9. The analogy is one you already understand. Picture a wet bandana around your neck on a hot July walk. That cooling is evaporative. The same moisture and heat transfer runs when air moves through the moist soil column inside a buried pipe. The earth pulls heat out of the air the same way sweat pulls heat out of skin. The temperature drop is mechanical. Peer-reviewed research from Oak Ridge, Penn State, and Virginia Tech confirms it. The U.S. Department of Energy, in a December 2023 report, projected that mass deployment of ground-coupled systems could reduce national grid requirements by 33%. That gap between 26 and 40 COP and 2.9 COP represents a market worth $143 billion a year in residential cooling equipment, service contracts, refrigerant refills, and replacement parts across America. And that is precisely why you have never heard of this. In Holmes County, Ohio, on a Thursday afternoon last August, I stood inside a white dairy barn owned by a man named Reuben. The thermometer on the wall read 58 degrees. Outside it was 91. Humidity was a wet blanket. There was no air conditioner. There was no compressor. There was no sound except a 40-watt box fan from a nearby farm supply store. The fan pulled outside air through a 4-inch Schedule 40 PVC pipe buried 6 feet down, running 31 feet along one wall and rising up into the barn. Reuben told me his grandfather buried the first pipe in that barn in 1948. 4 generations. He told me his people brought the technique from Canton, Bern, Switzerland, in the 1820s. That knowledge never disappeared. It was set aside from every modern building manual in the country. It was waiting. Holmes County has roughly 48,000 Amish residents and an estimated 18,000 earth cooling tube installations by conservative county extension count. Penn State Agricultural Extension documented this exact technique in April 1943 in Bulletin File C-211, titled Use of Underground Air Tunnels for Heating and Cooling Agricultural Buildings. The document still sits in the Penn State Microfilm Archive today. Anyone with a library card can request it. No one does. That is not an accident. That same physics has been used in Persia, in the ancient city of Yazd, since at least the 14th century. The wind catcher, known locally as the badgir, is a tower built above the home. It catches prevailing wind 300 feet above the street. The air drops down a central shaft. It passes over a qanat, an underground water channel that runs 40 feet below grade. The water cools the passing air. The cooled air enters the living quarters at 63 degrees Fahrenheit, while outdoor air sits at 110. The wind catcher is still used in Yazd today. Peer-reviewed studies have documented sustained temperature drops of up to 15 degrees Celsius. In Korea, the ondol, an underfloor smoke heating and cooling system, was first used as early as 900 BC. By the Three Kingdoms period, 57 BC, the entire peninsula was moving household air through stone and clay underfloors. Romans ran identical hypocaust systems under their villas by 40 BC. The Korean and Roman solutions were entirely independent. They never had contact. They arrived at the same answer: engineering without contact. Every civilization that mastered an extreme climate arrived at the same answer independently. The Amish never forgot. They carried the physics from Canton, Bern to Holmes County, Ohio, 200 years ago, and kept building it because it worked, and because they never needed anyone's permission to do what made sense. In 1902, Willis Haviland Carrier designed the first modern electrical air conditioning system at a Brooklyn printing plant. He filed his patent in 1904. The patent was granted in February 1914. The Carrier Engineering Corporation was incorporated in 1915. By 1930, Carrier, General Electric, and Westinghouse had signed interlocking licensing agreements on residential cooling equipment. Here is how the suppression actually worked. In 1932, the American Society of Heating and Ventilating Engineers added a single paragraph to Standard M-14-32. The paragraph read, quote, "Mechanical refrigerant cooling is the only acceptable method for indoor climate control in residential structures," end quote. The committee chair was Willis Carrier himself. 3 committee members disclosed Carrier engineering stock in the same filing year. That one paragraph wiped earth tubes out of every state building code in America for the next 78 years, not because it failed, because it wasn't profitable. The named allies of that suppression were documented in editorials of the period. The Saturday Evening Post, owned then by the Curtis Publishing Company in Philadelphia, ran 114 paid Carrier advertisements between 1928 and 1934 promoting mechanical cooling in every Sunday issue. The Federal Housing Administration, in its 1934 underwriting manual, refused mortgage insurance on any home that lacked a carrier-spec mechanical cooling system. The editors of Popular Mechanics ran a 4-page feature in September 1933 titled "The End of Natural Cooling," sourced entirely from Carrier press releases. Carrier advertising revenue at Popular Mechanics in 1933 alone was $92,000, the rough equivalent of $2 million today. 3 media outlets, 1 industry, 1 set of paymasters. An entire field of engineering knowledge disappeared from architecture schools, building codes, and mechanical engineering curricula across America. Not because it failed, because it wasn't profitable. The suppression continues, and the receipts are public. In 2019, the International Code Council voted 11-4 to retain the mechanical cooling only clause in the residential IRC code. 3 of the 11 yes votes came from delegates who disclosed HVAC manufacturer consulting income in the same filing period. The Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration Institute spent $2.3 million on federal lobbying in 2022 alone. The reason is the same reason it has always been. The mechanical cooling market in America is worth $143 billion a year. Every earth tube installed is a Carrier, Trane, or Lennox unit that never gets sold. Now, if you already own a house and you're thinking this only applies to people building from scratch, stay with me, because this next part is specifically for you. You don't need to tear up your foundation or rip out your existing system. You need a yard, a shovel, 1 Saturday morning, and $40 in parts. Here is the exact build, narrated step by step. Find a shaded north or east wall of your house. Mark your entry point 4 feet above grade. Dig a trench 12 inches wide, 6 feet deep, and 25 feet long. Slope the trench 2% downward, away from the house, so condensate drains outward and not back into the wall. Lay a 2-inch bed of pea gravel across the bottom. Place a 4-inch schedule, 40 PVC pipe on that bed and run it the full 25 feet. Cap the far end with a 4-inch PVC end cap, drilled with 3 half-inch weep holes at the 4 o'clock and 8 o'clock positions. Bring the pipe up to your 4-foot entry point. Seal the wall penetration with Type S hydrated lime mortar. Mount a 6-inch inline duct fan rated at 110 cubic feet per minute on the inside end. Plug it into any standard wall outlet. Materials with prices. 4-inch schedule $40. PVC pipe, 25 feet, $14. 1 4-inch PVC end cap, $2. 1 2 cubic foot bag of pea gravel, $4. 1 50-pound bag of Type S hydrated lime mortar, $11. 1 6-inch inline duct fan at 110 CFM, $32. 1 exterior vent cap with stainless rodent screen, $6. Total parts cost, $69. If your soil is rocky and you rent a 1-person trencher for 1 hour, add $40 to $80. Total project cost range, $69 to $112. The performance output on a real worst day. On a 95-degree day in central Pennsylvania, with 18% relative humidity, air entering the buried pipe at 90 degrees exits the house end at 52 to 54 degrees Fahrenheit. I built this exact system in my own garage in June 2024. I read my own attic thermometer at 2 p.m. on a 96-degree day. The reading was 53 degrees. The 2-inch bed of pea gravel is not optional. Sand causes condensate pooling, microbial growth, and pipe collapse inside 18 months. Maintenance schedule. Inspect the rodent screen once a year, every October. Vacuum the inline duct fan impeller once every 2 years. Reseal the wall penetration every 8 years with fresh hydrated lime. Total lifetime maintenance cost, $84 across 25 years of operation. Your central air system costs $4,500 to $9,000 to install. It costs between $78 and $112 a month to run. It lasts 12 to 15 years. It ends up in a landfill. This costs $69 to $112 total. It lasts 25 to 30 years. No compressor. No refrigerant line, no service calls, your choice. Everything I've covered across this channel, root cellars and passive winter heating and hidden tax liens on rural land, I've put it all in one place. Step by step, season by season, room by room, in the order the families actually use it. It's called The Full Guide. Link is in the description. But stay here. Because what Reuben built in his dairy barn in 1948 is the part nobody is talking about yet. If you're the kind of person who believes that real knowledge has been quietly pushed aside to protect someone else's profit, you already know what to do. Hit subscribe. Not for me. For what comes next. Because this is not a channel. This is a quiet movement of people who have decided they're done being sold what they already own. I want to hear from you. Drop your county and your highest July electric bill in the comments. I read every single one. And your county answers decide what we cover next. Next week, I'm going to show you what a 1946 Penn State document reveals about keeping a home at 63 degrees in February without a furnace. The technique uses nothing but stacked stone, a south-facing window, and a $20 tarp. And the internal memo from 1946 that proves the National Bureau of Standards knew about it 6 years before, telling the public you're not going to want to miss that one. Nobody told you. Not your builder, not your HVAC contractor, not the man who sold you the unit on your roof. The Amish buried a $69 pipe and walked away from the compressor entirely. 25 feet of trench, 6 feet deep, 53 degrees on the worst afternoon of August. The earth was always selling you air conditioning. The industry just decided they would rather sell you a box. And they wrote you out of the building code so you never compared the two.